Much fun to be here, and thanks all for joining. My name is Henk Ritmeester. I'm dialing in from Harderwijk, a place in the Netherlands. And as already mentioned in the invite, I'm responsible for Microsoft Viva within the Benelux, Sweden, and Finland, which means that I'm responsible for providing clients with deeper insights on, hey, what exactly is everything around Viva and how can we start working with it, implementing with it. And of course, we're doing that as always with valued partners like Xylos. So Xylos, also thanks to you for this invite. Really appreciate it. When we talk about Viva, it's good to know that we launched Viva, of course, per February this year. And there's quite a lot to tell about Viva, but the invite has been, hey, Henk, can you start discussing Viva and then zoom in on Viva Insights? So what I will do today, with your permission, is basically first tell you a little bit more about Viva and the history of Viva, and from there, I would like to visualize it a bit more. And after visualization, would also like to show you more on, hey, what is the kind of reporting that we have available in here. But before doing so, of course, it was a lot of pleasure to see the kind of dilemmas that Xylos was presenting. And maybe from there, it's also fun to share some of the insights that we noticed over the past 12 months during COVID-19. To start with, as we all know, but it has been quite impactful. So if I look back at a quote of our CEO, Satya Nadella, he already stated in April 2020, hey, we were projecting on how soon will companies develop with their digital transformation. And in fact, 2 months COVID-19 has brought us at a position where we thought we would be 2 years from now. So we were expecting the status quo of today per somewhere April 2022, a little bit later. So that kind of forced us to say, hey, let's accelerate the roadmap that we have. And if you look into Viva, what you will see is that previously we were already working on things called workplace analytics. We have announced a project called Project Cortex, which is very much centered around how do we make sure that knowledge is finding you instead of you searching for knowledge. And those were already stepping stones towards Viva. But thanks to what happened in the past 12 months, we decided, hey, let's accelerate that roadmap. The reason for mentioning that is that it's also good to understand what is the concept behind Viva. And the concept behind Viva, which is an employee experience platform, and I will share more about that later. The concept and the thinking behind Microsoft Viva was looking back over the past month of working home together. We've noticed in the first months of people working from home that they were very centered around, I need to get my mind around working with all the digital tools. I need to focus on the core of my job because I'm less visible to my manager and we're in a kind of crisis mode. So I really want to make sure that I deliver on that core of the job. So from the data and insights that we have, what we noticed is that people were very focused on delivering on the core of the job. Were investing heavily in working with those people around them that they needed to deliver on that core of the job. And at the same time, we noticed that the size of the network was basically staying at the same level. And when we asked people for quality feedback via surveys, the feedback that we did get was, well, I'm pleasantly surprised about how well I'm able to work from home via all the digital tools available. In fact, it's a positive thing. I feel more connected to the people close to me. And please note, of course, I'm generally speaking. But at the same time, what people already were flagging in that first lockdown, so from March 2020 till the May, June 2020, was at the same time, I feel it's harder to tap into the intellectual property and the knowledge of the company. And I feel less connected to what's happening in the wider organization. Then, of course, we noticed the partially shift and the return to the office during summertime as lockdown was going away. But then, hey, we ended up in that second lockdown, which started, depending on which country you are, somewhere in September, October 2020. And what we noticed from that moment on is that people were focusing more on, I want to replicate the way I worked in the office, basically from working behind the laptop. And that means that from that moment on, we also in the news noted that people started mentioning much more. I feel bombarded with meetings, and at the same time, I have to deliver on my job. It's becoming harder to connect to what's happening in the wider organization. It's harder to find knowledge, etc. And as you can imagine, all those things led to the question, hey, can we develop an environment where we at least digitally help people to work as efficient as possible and increase the employee experience coming with it? So I will start sharing my screen and explain that a little bit more in depth and visualize that. My apologies for this. So if we look at Viva, what we basically were wondering is, hey, what are the most important key elements that we see that is building a great employee experience? And the parts that you see on the right side, of course, are things that are not new to us. So we know that feeling empowered, being able to grow and work for a company that has a bigger purpose is a really important part of a great employee experience. And of course, we're finding new ways via the digital way of working now to work on that. But at the same time, what we also notice is that the left side definitely did get a more focus and attention. So how do I remain my well-being? How do I balance between work and personal life while working from home? How do I maintain the connections that I have within the organizations, but also outside my organization? And preferably, how do I make my network grow? And then last but not least, specifically during the second lockdown, hey, where I see that the amount of meetings I'm in is increasing and sometimes they may feel more efficient. At the same time, it's harder for me to focus and deliver on that. And what we noticed, for example, in the most recent Microsoft survey polls, we were having those kind of engagement surveys every year, is that on questions like, hey, do you feel that Microsoft is giving you the freedom to make the choices between what you had, the amount of time you're spending on work versus personal life, we are still scoring really high. But then the next question in that Microsoft survey was, do you also see that happening in real life? So are you capable of managing that balance between work and life? And we definitely noticed a huge drop in that engagement. So of course, those are reasons to start thinking, hey, how can we help out, at least in a digital way, to make that performance better? So that's the reason why we came up with what we now call Viva, which is an employee experience platform. And it's basically built on 3 pillars. So the first pillar is, today I need to go to Teams for meetings, for chats, for collaborating in projects. But then if I want to stay connected, I also need to visit the SharePoint intranet to get the latest company news. If I want to know what's happening in the latest company conversations, I need to visit Jammer. If I want to spend some time on the learnings that are assigned to me, I need to know to which learning platforms I have to go, and I have to check on those learning platforms. Hey, what are learnings assigned to me? If that's the case over different learning applications. From there, I need to go to other applications to raise a request for a day off or to look at my salary slip. Then it's possible that the company is having an app on well-being where I can find more insights, etc. But that means that I constantly need to go to different places, and I also need to know about all those different places. So what we felt is, hey, if we can basically build an extra layer over Teams and decide, hey, Teams will be the central application where we're working, but can we now elevate Teams into something that is the one place the company have to go? And that's basically what we are building with, or what we have built with Microsoft Viva. So what you will see later on, I will visualize this as well, is that we will be adding an extra homepage into the Teams environment where I'm much more targeted, will get the information from the intranet, the information coming from Jammer on company conversations, but I will also get highlights on possible learnings, insights that can help me and can help me to focus on my well-being or productivity or whatsoever. And the great thing about it is that we can also make that timeline targeted. So where if I go to the intranet, I can see all the information shared with all employees. That might be a reason to kind of check out if a lot of the content on the intranet is not specifically targeted to me. And with that home basically timeline in Teams, we are creating an environment where we can share of course, articles targeted to everybody, but at the same time can target specific groups with specific articles from that intranet relevant to them, while not targeting it to others, meaning that we avoid the feeling of I am constantly going through content that is not there for me. So that's the first thing. So basically I have one place to go where I can basically do everything. The second part is that we feel you should have a place to go where you can have a look at all learnings assigned to you from whatever platform it's coming. And at the same time, we know from an HR perspective that learning will apply much more when I get it served at the moment I need it for the work I'm doing, instead of just carving out 1 or 2 hours a week to focus on learning. So we created Viva Learning, which is an employee experience platform, which means we will work on improving the learning experience via providing you an overview of all learnings assigned to you, via providing you proactively recommendations on learnings that might be of interest to you. And we will base those recommendations on trainings followed by colleagues that flag that training as very intriguing, very interesting, very helpful. And at the same time, we will focus those learnings centered around what are the topics you are working on. So we will start actively looking at, hey, what are the topics that people are working on and what are learnings, training materials that we have available to target you with to help you out. So that means that learning will come to you proactively. And then the last part, that's basically the knowledge part, that's what we call Viva Topics, is a piece of artificial intelligence where we constantly will look at, hey, what are the topics that we see people are working on, chatting around, collaborating on. Based on artificial intelligence, the Viva Topics will automatically start creating SharePoint pages where we collect all the information around topics that are hot in your company. And all information means what experts are there, what content is there, what learnings are there, etc. And combined with those topics, we will provide you with, hey, what is the relationship from the topic you're working on with other topics? So if you're zooming in on Microsoft Viva, we will also share with you how that's related to a topic like insights or a topic like communications, etc. And before you're getting scared about, hey, what is the amount of pages created fully automatically? Of course, hey, we will create admins and offer admins the opportunity to see what kind of pages is topic suggesting to build. And if the creation of that page is approved, then it will be published to the ones that have rights to the access of the content or the access of the experts. And on top of that, you can manage yourself what is provided automatically versus what is it that I want to edit on those pages. So basically, there is curation. And the reason curation is important is because AI is learning faster if we're offering this opportunity to curate as well, and via that route also train the system in what is relevant, what is working, what is important, what is not. So we'll stay in full control. Having said that, if you then look at, hey, what are the pillars of Microsoft Viva, you basically see that we have 4 pillars. The first one is Viva Connections. And you already see on the screen that there is a screenshot of a Teams environment where I don't see the normally chats, etc. But what I see is articles, company feed, etc. But I'll show you this a little bit later in time as well. The second part that we will provide are insights related to employee well-being, and at the same time we can offer insights towards management on what is happening within my teams, and based on those insights, what kind of actions could I take. Then we have Viva Topics, that is basically that story that I just shared around, hey, we will create and look in your systems on what are the chats happening most and the content used most, and how can we create topic pages around it, and then start serving people within their teams or email with information around that certain topic. And then, of course, we have Viva Learning. So on one hand, a place where I can find all learnings assigned to me, and at the same time, that's fueling in other parts of Viva, so the wider Teams environment, what kind of learnings might be of interest to you. The final thing I want to mention with regards to learning, as we're not zooming in on that deeply today, is think about Viva Learning as a learning experience platform rather than a learning management system. So where in a learning management system, for example, you can create learning paths. That's something that is not possible in Viva Learning. So you can assign learning paths via Microsoft Viva, but you can't build those learning paths. So there's customized ways of building learning via Viva. Last but not least, a learning followed via Viva. The status quo of the progress of that learning followed will be visualized in and synchronized with the learning management system behind it as well. But as an end user, I will experience that I'm following that learning within Teams. If we claim that we are working on a system that should basically the one place to go, then that means that we shouldn't limit to just Microsoft products. So for that reason, we see and we feel that Microsoft Viva should be an ecosystem where also other partners can participate and start offering their content, their services within Viva as well. So from the start, we announced from the perspective of content, we will not only connect LinkedIn Learning and Microsoft Learn into the Viva learning experience, but we will also offer the opportunity of connecting with Coursera, edX, Pluralsight, and Skillsoft. From the communication perspective, you see that, of course, there is the opportunity to communicate via Teams, Outlook, and Jammer. But next to that, also possible to connect with Slack and Zoom. For CRM, it's Dynamics, but also Salesforce. For digital workflows, it's Microsoft Power Automate, but next to that, also connecting with ServiceNow. And from the perspective of HR and learning, we're offering access to Cornerstone On Demand, Saba, SAP SuccessFactors, Workday, etc. And as stated, much more will be coming. Last but not least, on the level of well-being, we are enabling a connection with an app called Headspace, and I will zoom in on that later. And we will be providing the opportunity to connect with the data that is coming from Glint, which is an employee engagement survey system, which allows you to basically zoom in on, hey, what is on one hand the feedback that people are providing via engagement surveys, and on the other hand, what are the data points based on their behavior telling me from within Viva Insights? So we're basically offering an integrated experience there. Last but not least, important to show you as well is the roadmap of Viva, because we're launching it. And as mentioned, it's basically a launch that we accelerated. So it's good to know what is there and what is coming. So if we look at what is there, per February 2021, we launched Viva, and with the launch of Viva, we made topics and Viva Insights available via public preview. Per April, so this month, Connections is there to start working with it via desktop. And at the same time, the learning public preview will be released end of this month, beginning of next month. So I'm expecting it the latest week of April. And then in May, we will come up with further partner announcements. We will come up with further LMS partner integrations, but also very important to mention is we will start offering, open up the public APIs, which means that external parties can start building their connection into Viva to offer their services, their content, their products to your employees via the Microsoft environment. And then last but not least, during the summer, so no month is mentioned, so let's assume September, October, we will have the full Viva availability, so the full Viva experience available, including the mobile app for connections and including the full topics experience. And the reason we are making a difference between topics per Viva launch versus topics version 2 during the summer is in this situation, so where we're currently in, we're offering the opportunity to already activate the topic experience in SharePoint. And you can also activate it when people start searching, where from the moment we have launched topics version 2, that means that I will also see topics cards popping up and topics information popping up in email, Teams, etc. So far on product map, roadmap, timeline, etc. So my suggestion is to move now to Microsoft Viva and let's have a deeper experience. If you have any questions at this time on, hey, what's happening, or I want to have some more clarification, I have colleagues ready for you in the chat. You might already have noticed it. So feel free to raise your question there. They will immediately jump on your question and make sure that you get your answer while listening to this further demonstration. So if we zoom in on, hey, how would Microsoft Viva look like in reality? The first thing I want to zoom in quickly is on what we call Viva Connections. And the reason for doing that is that also in this connection, so in this homepage, aka timeline part, you will see that insights are already coming to life. So what we see here is a Teams environment of a company that we call Relic Cloud. This is their logo, and thanks to that, we created a customized button for the homepage within Viva Teams, which is the logo of Relic Cloud. And what you see is that I immediately see information coming from the SharePoint intranet. There is news on the company feed. I can be fed with conversations coming from Jammer, which you will see later on as well. And I can make this, as mentioned, a targeted experience. So when in Teams, on one hand, I can see, for example, 2 products targeted to all employees. But it's possible, for example, to say, hey, this article is only visible to people who are coming from the area of around Washington or coming from the USA, where people from the Netherlands will not see this article, but probably will see something else targeted to the Netherlands or targeted to me as part of a certain functional group. Where we offer this experience, of course, via the desktop app. At the same time, we will offer this via the Teams mobile app. And what you will see is that it's looking much more simple, much more intuitive. So what we basically created is a mobile app where we will have a feed that you can compare with the feed, the timeline that you get provided on social media. And as we scroll through the feed, you basically see that we show you articles in the feed, the engagement happening with the article via likes. The moment I click on that article, I can see, hey, what other articles that are there that might be of interest to me? And last but not least, I also see the engagement, so the conversations around this article immediately. And one of the reasons we are very happy with this is that it basically reinforces the engagement over the different products that we have so far in one place, and which is Microsoft Viva. So engagement happening on SharePoint Intranet is also serving engagement happening on Jammer and vice versa. And the same goes for learning. So to visualize that more, we can also, by the way, you see the engagement here. So you see that visualized. You see that the visuals in the desktop app and the mobile app are in sync. But there's also this dashboard. And in this dashboard, you can create tiles. So the blocks that we see here are called tiles. You can create tiles that are available to targeted audiences again. So what you see is that there is one tile that is stating to me, Henk, you have applied to come to the office. We're in stage 2, which means that you can only come if you're safe, healthy, and there is a real need. And of course, you need to perform a COVID-19 check. And instead of now following a hyperlink, which brings me to another environment, I just have to click on submit here, and I will do that COVID-19 check within the Teams environment and submit my check. That same way, I can have a look at the tasks or the expenses that are that I should file into the system. And as you can see, I can, for example, via the Teams app, request a day off in the system. What you also see is that we can already here on the homepage start to serve insights to people, basically coming from My Analytics. So Viva Insights is a combination of what we are offering to employees via My Analytics or what we are offering to organizations on a de-identified, anonymized level via Workplace Analytics. So what you see here is that I, for example, can connect with the app Headspace that can help me to start meditating. And again, it will be launched in the Viva environment. I get a learning recommended, in this case from the LinkedIn Learning platform, but it could come from all the other partners I was already mentioning, so Cornerstone or whatever. And later on, we will be able to connect with even more learning management systems. The system is telling me, hey, Henk, you're working for 5 days a week, but we only see 3 days where you have focus time booked. So maybe you should start planning some extra focus time for the coming weeks. And if I hit this button, it will automatically look for available spaces in my calendar to block focus time. And if I approve it, if I approve the suggestion, it will fully automatically schedule extra focus time into my calendar. So zooming in on the mobile experience, you see that it's literally looking the same, while at the same time looking very intuitive. So I can do my stuff. And what I'd like to highlight is that that means that I can also target this whole experience much more, for example, to frontline workers. So in this case, I'm looking at the dashboard of Cachet, where she sees or he sees, hey, my shift starts in 5 minutes, so I can clock in here via the clock-in system. And then at the same time, hey, when I'm starting my shift, of course, I need to make sure that I have performed my health check. And instead of knowing this, it's all here in one app, and I can just click on answering the health check. It will start. And from there, I will have that feeling like, hey, this is the one place where I have to go, and it helps me to do all the things that I need to do to go to the office, do my job in the shop or whatsoever. So that's basically the look and feel of Viva connections. So basically the look and feel of Viva in the Teams environment. Now from there, of course, you're interested in, hey, but what can we do with insights? So first, let's look at what is the experience for individual employees. And what you basically see is that we have rebranded the My Analytics into a place where I, on one hand, get suggestions, as you already noticed on the homepage. But if I click on those insights, I can go to the full overview of insights available to me. And there I will see, for example, again, that suggestion to schedule some extra focus time. But also you see a mentioning telling me, hey, you don't have one-on-one time with your manager. We like to develop a coaching culture. So click here to find some scheduling options with my manager. What you will see later on is that this is flanking perfectly the information we're providing to managers on the level of engagement. So you will basically see a manager look and feel of this tile as well later on. From there, of course, I will see learning suggested again to me. I see this hyperlink to Headspace again. And then we offer the opportunity to build something that we call a virtual commute. So one of the pieces of feedback that we did get a lot over the past 12 months was I'm kind of missing that 20, 30, 40-minute drive from the office towards home, where when I'm in my car or in public transportation, have the time to rethink what happened today. Did I perform on all my actions? What is there that I want to remember to start with tomorrow? And what we're offering here is the opportunity to basically build a virtual commute routine that helps you to close off the day in the way you like, to help you to basically unwind behind your desk in your home office before stepping into your private life, for example, in the living room with a lot of energetic kids. So this is a great way to help people to literally plan virtually how was that unwinding time working and how can I replicate that now digitally. And then last but not least, of course, we have this opportunity here to check in on, hey, what is the sentiment today amongst employees? And like we used to do on the airport, I can hit basically a green, orange, red button on how I feel. There's also this PA assistant in Teams that can help me to check, hey, what's happening in my chats, what kind of promises or suggestions did I make? And if, for example, to Tom has suggested, hey, I have cool new documents on Viva, I will share them with you. This personal assistant will make a task in my Teams overview, and in the end of the day, tell me, hey, in one of the chats with Tom, you kind of promised to send him documentation. Did you already do it? So that will help me to organize what are the kind of things I was mentioning in the chat that I probably should follow up, or appointments that we were making. And as you can see, again, personal suggestions are made available on hey, how can I improve the way I work, or how can I take some mindfulness time, etc. From there, of course, it's interesting to see, but hey, what are the kind of insights that we then can provide to leadership? So if you have activated workplace analytics, you basically, via that route, also activate the whole Viva Insights experience. And what you then can do is, for example, provide managers that are managing one team with insights like these, stating, hey, we're not telling you if there is burnout. We're only flagging to you what are things that might lead to the risk of burnout. And from the perspective of prevention, we want to bring your attention to what are the data points that we see that makes us raise a flag on, hey, pay attention. You have an opportunity to prevent something from happening. And this is why. So what you see here is that we are telling this manager, hey, if we look at the employees in your team, we see that 60% of your team is working hours before or after regular office times. And secondly, if we would deep dive into this information, we would also be able to present to this manager what is the total amount of hours worked, what is the total amount of time spent in collaboration, etc. And at the same time, you already see here that we see what is the amount of quiet hours that people have, and hey, what are ways to free up capacity for employees? So as this might be intriguing, of course, I can click on that and then have a look at, hey, how do I compare with my team to other teams? Is this indeed something that is worrying, where I should be concerned or at least pay attention? And in this case, I can see that, yes, my team is on average making more after hours collaboration than teams like mine. And from there, I can have a look at recommended plans And you can customize the way this is looking, or raise a flag to someone that is diving deeper into the analytics to help you out on, hey, what data points do we have available to see? Should I act on this? And if so, what is a way I can start acting on that? If I'm leading bigger teams, so multiple teams, I can have a look at my organization to see, hey, for example, with regards to cohesion, what is the way teams are collaborating together, and how is the collaboration within teams? And what you see here as well is that we're managing on the level of employee engagement via the question, how many of your employees have less than 15 minutes time, have one-on-one time with their manager each week? As while working from home, we know based on research that being able to connect with your manager at least once per 2 weeks is really crucial to keep that engagement going, and to lower the level of insecurity that employees might see. So you see that we provide that kind of insights, and then again offer insights, for example, to see, hey, how can we find ways to reduce the amount of meetings if people are spending too much time in meetings. Because good to remember, the moment we're spending, for example, 70% of our time in meetings, we also need to carve out some extra time to prepare for those meetings or follow up on those meetings. So from there, it's also possible for senior leadership to provide access to the data that we have available in what we used to call workplace analytics via templates that we created in Power BI. And the way we are building those data points is we're collecting the data that is in your tenant over the past 13 months, completely anonymizing and de-identifying that data, and then start building reports where we report on a minimum of 5 people to make 100% sure that you can't identify the individuals. So I'm stepping out of this presentation now and stepping into a live demonstration of one of the Power BI templates that we have. And what we're looking at is what we call a way of working assessment. And what you see in this Power BI template is that I'm reporting over a period of 6 months' time, partially pre-COVID-19 and partially during COVID-19, so from November 2019 till April 2020. I can see, hey, what is the total amount of hours in the average work week, and at the same time, how much time was spent in meetings, emails, Teams, chats, etc. And thanks to some organizational data uploaded by the organization, we can present that information based on departments or based on the designation level. And as you see, immediately flagged as, hey, groups with less than 5 people will not be displayed in the report. If you then look at, hey, what is Viva Insights capable of reporting, I can basically show that easily to you on the next page. So what we're doing is presenting you first data points on how do people, employees, spend their weekly collaboration time, or how is collaboration load impacting the total amount of after hours? How well do we spend, and in what way do we spend the meeting time? How much time is going towards long or large meetings? Who in the organization is generating the most workload based on meetings? Do we see multitasking, etc.? And again, you're not seeing this on an individual level, but you're seeing this on the trend level, so on the group level of your employees, to see, hey, how can that help? And the way we are using the data is basically to provide you then with insights on employee experience. So, for example, when does collaboration start impacting after hours? Or, hey, who in the organization might be at risk of burnout? And again, we're not claiming that people are literally on the risk of burnout, but we're at least providing you with flags on, hey, should I start a prevention program? Should I dive deeper into this? Because a combination of data points is at least making it easy to predict, to expect that this risk is increasing. So to see more on, hey, how does that reporting look like? What you see here, for example, is that we can zoom in on, hey, what's the total amount of time spent on collaboration? And again, and I'm flagging this because I get that question quite a lot. What you see is that it's absolutely impossible to identify individuals here. We're just presenting this on the designation level of groups of employees, or presenting this to you based on the departments that you have. Within the report, we're constantly telling you, hey, on this tab, what is there to examine and why does that matter? So what is the way we are looking to this data, and to what kind of conclusions or suggestions are we jumping from there? When looking at collaboration, I can have a look at, hey, is there a correlation between collaboration and working after hours? And yes, I can see that in this case, the Department of Strategy is spending 79% of their time in collaboration. And at the same time, I see that they have spent quite some time in after-hour collaboration. So if I want to zoom in further, I can literally have a look at, hey, what is the meeting culture in the company? The way we are building this is basically on the level of the metadata that is coming out of Outlook email, Outlook calendar, and Teams. So we're not at all looking at content of email or at content of a calendar or at content of chat. We're just looking at the metadata, which means when do we see that people are meeting? How long are people in meeting? Are people leaving meetings earlier, yes or no? And again, we're not synchronizing or reporting that on an individual level to you, but we're just looking at, if we look at the total set of data, what is that telling us? So based on that metadata, we can see, for example, hey, what meetings are there that we define as all hand meetings, meaning, hey, it's taking quite a lot of time and there are quite a lot of attendees as well. And at the same time, what, for example, are decision-making meetings based on the amount of people and the kind of people in there. So no much overlap of the same people in the same role in one meeting. And also, do we see different management levels? And we can also use some of the metadata based on the persons that are in there to identify is management involved, yes or no. So from there, we can provide you with insights on what is the kind of meetings that we have. And then from there, it's probably, it's for example, possible to zoom further in on, hey, what is the amount of long and large meetings that we have? And are all those meetings necessary, yes or no? And that judgment call is up to you. But it's at least a nice way to find out, hey, if I need to start saving time on meetings, where could I start? We can also zoom in on, hey, what's happening on the level of multitasking? And when we think about multitasking, again, this is not about finger pointing to employees on, hey, you shouldn't do different things. It's basically, where do we see over a period of 6 months' time that people are in meetings where they have the feeling I should be there because, hey, I don't want to miss out on anything. And at the same time, based on the activities during those meetings, we're seeing that people basically feel this is a routine meeting, I can do different things. And we're looking basically at different things when we see that people are literally working not on the same subject, but on a completely different subject or with completely different people. And that is a great indicator to see, hey, is this a meeting still needed? All those components in the end together can, for example, lead to, hey, what is, where do we see that there at least is a flag for where do we see the highest risk of burnout? So again, we're not stating that there is burnout, but where do we see the highest risk? And we base that highest risk on the combination of, over a period of 6 months time, where do we see that employees face a high amount of collaboration hours on one hand, while at the same time their average work week span over the past 6 months is pretty high. Right? So you can see already here at 60 hours a week. So this group of people is basically over a period of 6 months time working an average work week span of 60 hours, and at the same time is spending quite a lot of time in meetings. And based on all the data points that we have, we can then start combining further or deep diving further to see, hey, what is happening? Was there a change in workload? Was this started since the start of COVID-19 or something else going on? And in the way you can analyze this data and build further reporting or combine it with other data sets, that's absolutely the place where Xylos can serve you big time. As Xylos has been through quite some training and also certification training on how to use workplace analytics, how to interpret the insights, but also, hey, how can we start combining this and analyzing this related to other data sets that you, for example, might have coming from your CRM system, your productivity system, whatsoever. So with that, Tom, looking back at you, I think I managed to, on one hand, present, hey, what is Microsoft Viva as an experience platform? From there, to deep dive a little bit deeper into what are the kind of insights that we can provide from there. And I think it's a great next step to see how you guys can help companies to further zoom in on Viva and start working with it. So with that, thanks a lot for your time here.